Friday night. We're calling it Fuck That Fridays because I couldn't think of anything else. It is a Friday night bonus show. We told you were going to get one of these. Lo and behold, you did. I'm your host, as always, Caleb Salvatore, reporting from somewhere underground. We're laughing our way through the end of days, brought to you by Outlaw Streamers and our friends at Blood of Tyrants Wines. Drink bloodoftyrants.com with the promo code BASED, BASED. Like the title of the show, will save you 10% off your order at the checkout. Two types of wine, both red and white, along with the Liquid Freedom energy drink. Drink bloodoftyrants.com, promo code BASED, BASED. Like the title of the show, going to save you 10% off your order at the checkout. And since this is a Friday show, the rest of it's going to be ad-free. So I was scrolling through local Facebook events today. That's a lie. Somebody sent me one of these. I'm not that engaged in my community. But the Urban Abbey, which describes itself in Omaha as your local progressive Methodist church, coffee brewers, and book enthusiasts, they are hosting an event coming up here in a couple of weeks. American Teenager Book, Talk, and Signing. Says, join us at Urban Abbey for a book talk and signing with Nico Lang about the author and book. From an award-winning journalist comes a vivid and moving portrait of 8 trans and non-binary teenagers across the country, following their daily triumphs, struggles, and all that encompasses growing up trans in America today. Media coverage tends to sensationalize the fight over how trans kids should be allowed to live, but what is incredibly rare are the voices of the people at the heart of the debate: transgender and gender non-conforming kids themselves. So their groundbreaking new book of theirs. So it's the so-called journalist is a freak too. Nico Lang spent a year traveling the country to document the lives of transgender, non-binary, and gender-fluid teens and their families. I'm sure that was riveting. I'm sure they did a whole lot there, drawing on hundreds of hours of on-the-ground interview. Why is anyone asking why this guy wants to be around teenagers so much? Is that a question to anybody? On-the-ground interviews with them. I'm serious. Jokes aside, you're spending hundreds of hours around teenagers that are already a little confused. Maybe we should put you on a list, bro. Says American Teenager paints a vivid portrait of what it's actually like to grow up trans today. Well, yeah, you'd have to talk about what it's like to grow up trans today, because 20 years ago, nobody grew up trans. This is a relatively new trend. So you didn't have to add the today there. Okay, so so he goes on and on. So the reason I bring this up is because it plays into some more timely news, which is Pope Leo. Pope Leo, who I've intentionally waited to comment on because I knew all the idiots were going to get their hot takes out there before the guy had even had a chance to explain himself. And most of them aren't even Catholic that have all these big, bold opinions on him, so it really doesn't affect them all that much. But I figured I would wait because I wanted to look into the guy. I wanted to see what the first couple things he said and did were. And I'll tell you what, it's a mixed bag, as it is with most humans. As we all know, I voted for Donald Trump. I'm not a huge fan of everything Donald Trump says or does, but he was still better than Kamala Harris. So I think we can apply that to everything else. So here's the thing. The Pope Leo, the reason I brought that up is because he said something that really fits into what this Methodist church here in Omaha is doing. He said that America is being overrun by, and I quote, de facto atheism. Now, he is the first ever American Pope. He's from Chicago. He's a registered Republican who votes in primaries and was critical of Donald Trump and J.D. Vance on Twitter. Can we get that out of the way? Okay, cool. Let's talk about what he actually believes in terms of Christianity. So when he says de facto atheism, this is something we talk about on this show all the time. We just call it something different. We call it the Crystal Girls, okay? But the Crystal Girls aren't the only ones that fit into this category. Another form of de facto atheism are these so-called Christians who bastardize the Bible to mean whatever they want it to. They take little bits and pieces of it that they agree with that suit their worldview, and then they cast the rest to the side as if it doesn't matter. Basically what they want is the insurance the reassurance of knowing you are going to get an afterlife, that, when you close your eyes, this isn't it, without having to actually go through any of the discipline parts of it, right? That's what, when you see these I'm not religious, I'm spiritual idiots that run around with their crystals and their tapestry, it's basically an excuse for, I'm not comfortable with closing my eyes being the end of it, right? When I die, I'm done. I'm not comfortable with that idea, but I also don't want to have to do any of the discipline that comes with being a real Christian. I don't want to have to deal with, the fasting, the tithing, restraint from sin, at least attempting to restrain from sin, actually admitting when I've made mistakes. That's a big one for a lot of these people. And that's really what the Methodist Church and the Episcopalian Church, and there's all these little Protestant sects. And I'm not saying all Protestants are liberals. I'm far from that, by the way. But all these little Protestant sects that have popped up all around the country, specifically over the last 10 to 15 years, they're more or less practicing de facto atheism. Now, this is a two-way street. The Westboro Baptist Church fits into that category as well. These people, again, I'm only going to go with the parts of the Bible that justify my worldview and give me an excuse to continue doing what I'm doing. I'm going to go out and preach God and, the love and tolerance and all that. But what I won't preach are, the parts about discipline, the parts about forgiveness for your sins, for other people's sins specifically, because these woke cults can't forgive anyone. Every time you make one mistake, they ostracize you and cast you out of the group. I'm sure they forget that part at this little Abbey coffee shop, whatever it's called, in downtown Omaha as well. The parts about restraint from sin, those things, they don't think about those. So they're de facto atheists. He hit the head on the nail with what he said. He had another quote that I really liked. He said, give me just a second. He said, people who think they can follow Christ in their own way without being part of the body are living a distortion. So again, plays right back into the de facto atheism thing. If you believe that you can pick and choose little parts of the Bible that you're going to follow, little parts of Jesus's teachings that you want to follow and those that you don't want to follow, I hate to break it to you, you're not going to, well, I can't say you're not going to go to heaven definitively because that's not up to me. You're not living your life as a Christian. You're not. You're living it as some new age spiritual weirdo that wants to go around and do whatever the hell they want without consequences, without showing any type of restraint, any type of personal growth, discipline, anything. I mean, they're lunatics. He's 100% correct. He made another comment today that really got under some people's skin, where he said, and this is a shocking take from the Pope, he said that the family is based on a union between a man and a woman, and the unborn have inherent dignity that we cannot infringe upon through abortion. He's also criticized gender studies, gender theology, gender ideology, whatever you want to call it, the tranny crap, okay? He's gone on the record being very, very critical of that, not as critical of it as Robert Sarra, who I was a big fan of, that I wanted, but nonetheless, we'll take it. Here's the thing, guys. He's regarded to in the Vatican as a moderate, okay? He's not an extreme conservative nor a progressive. But what you have to realize is even those of you on the woke side that thought he was somehow going to come out and legalize gay marriage in the church, even the most so-called progressive Pope Francis, didn't believe in gay marriage or abortion. Now, he was more welcoming to them. He was of the mindset that we're not going to tell you can't come to the church, which Cardinal Prevost, or Pope Leo, as he's now going to be called, is as well. And I don't disagree with that. I don't think we should kick people out of the church for being gay. I understand the church says that their lifestyle is not an acceptable practice, but that's between them and God. I don't think we should be turning anyone away. If they truly want to get closer to Jesus, then you know what? I say we let them in. And we'll let the chips fall where they may, right? So, I don't know. I know there's a lot of people on the right that are freaking out because here's what I think. You want to know what I think? Because he is a little bit socially progressive. He's a Joe Manchin type, right? He's a Republican from Chicago, probably a moderate, whatever, right? Here's what people got to realize. There's a couple things you got to realize. Pope Francis appointed nearly 3/4 of the College of Cardinals, okay, that voted on the next pope. This was the best we were going to get, was a moderate. You have to take the victories incrementally. This is like when Cori Bush lost her primary. Yeah, there was still a Democrat there, but it wasn't a lunatic Democrat. It wasn't an embarrassment Democrat. It was a marginal improvement. And we'll take marginal improvements over more of the same or stepping in the wrong direction. So everyone freaking out about this needs to just chill. And I think some of you need to mind your own fucking business if you want me to be completely honest with you about it. So here's what we got to realize, though. The Pope is considered a moderate because his political views social views tend to lean more progressive. However, his views on how the church should operate in terms of the inner workings and things that are and aren't allowed, such as women being ordained, are actually very traditionalist. Now, we're not going to know until he actually starts doing his job, but from what I understand, he is of the mindset that the Pope should be focused on the workings of the church rather than intervening in global politics. So his political opinions on this issue really don't matter. He's going to do what we want him to do with the church, and that's the important part here. If I hire somebody to do my roof, I don't care if they voted for Trump, if they voted for Harris, if they voted for the Libertarian. It doesn't matter to me. If you're going to keep politics out of it and not talk to me about it the whole time, I don't care if you voted for Kamala Harris or if you're a full-blown communist for that matter. If you're the best roofer in town, I'm going to hire you as long as you're within my budget. So what we have to realize is the Pope is a job, just like anything else. He can have his political views. You all work with people you don't agree with. Everybody does. You learn to get on with it. Now, and if their politics become too much of an issue at work, that's a different story. But why don't we give the guy a chance first? Because everything I've heard him say so far since he became Pope has impressed me. Donald Trump's another example. We elected him to be president. We elected him to go in there with a hammer and fuck shit up. He's the guy that when you owe too much money to the loan shark, he gets sent into your store and starts breaking a bunch of stuff. That's what we elected him to do. We know, most of us know, Donald Trump, probably not the best guy on earth. He's got a little bit of a checkered past, some issues with adultery, gambling. He wasn't the gambler, but he owned the casinos and some shady business deals. We understood that when we got into this. We didn't care about his background. So if the Pope's going to worry about what the Catholic Church and the Vatican are doing, I don't understand why we care about his political views if he's not going to involve himself in politics. So let's just give him a chance and see if he does what he says he's going to do. Here's my other thing. I also don't think his politics are all that big of a deal. And I'll tell you why. In 2024, Donald Trump got 59% of the Catholic vote in the United States. 59%. By far and away, at least over the last 40 years, the highest, or the 30 years, excuse me, the most of any Republican, and it's not even close. Not even close. 59%. That was despite Pope Francis constantly meddling in American politics, constantly calling both him and his running mate out when he was president and then again when he was running. That's up from about 49% 4 years prior and 52% 8 years prior against Hillary Clinton. Biden won the Catholic vote. So that tells us that Catholics are becoming more conservative in America. They took a hard right turn in 2024, despite all of the meddling from a extremely liberal and extremely political Pope. They continue to trend to the right, which tells us they have a mind of their own. And they've seen enough of the woke nonsense and continued to drift to the right. I don't think that's a trend that's going to stop either as the liberals continue to attack religion. So the Pope's politics, how he votes, what he thinks about immigration, really don't matter all that much. Because you just had a guy who was way too involved in politics, and he couldn't turn American Catholics liberal. So if we're going to have a guy who's even moderately less involved in politics than Pope Francis was, one could suggest that our conservative voting Catholic trend is going to continue. 4 years on, or 4 years from now. I don't think he has all that much effect, is what I'm saying. So now that the idiots have gotten their takes out, I just wanted to give you guys a nuanced take. I'm cautiously optimistic, okay? I don't know him. He's a human. If he comes out and says some stupid shit that I don't like, guess what? Fine. This isn't Jesus coming down from heaven and telling me that I'm getting X, Y, and Z issues wrong. He's a man. He's allowed to have different opinions than mine. He's allowed, and I'm allowed to find some of his opinions stupid if I want to. And guess what? I'm also allowed to come on here and call him out when he does it, just like you guys see me do every week for Donald Trump, whom I support and voted for. Because that's what it's like when you don't live on a constant hot and cold temperature. I don't have to defend everything Trump does. I don't have to defend everything the Pope does. I do have to defend everything my wife does, or I'll be sleeping on the couch. Other than that, I'm allowed to have my own opinions because I'm not defined by the views of other people. So there you have it. There's my 2 cents on that. I'm glad we could get that out of the way. Let's talk about a couple of other things while we got your ear here. James Comey, the former director of the FBI. Now, James Comey, he was visited by the... Well, actually, he wasn't visited. He was escorted to have a little talking to with the Secret Service today. And he was escorted down there due to an Instagram post he had made about President Trump, where it was seashells lined up that said, and I quote, 8647. Now, to 86 something means to get rid of it, to remove it, to kill it in a lot of instances. And obviously that drew the attention of Secret Service, as our friend and comedian Aaron Clough knows. When you make jokes about offing a president, even if it's just a joke, they are going to come and talk to you. So Comey deleted the post from Instagram after he got called out on it. Said, I posted it, and he posted a new one. I posted a picture of some shells I saw today on a beach walk, which I assumed were a political message. Because that's what I do. When I just see numbers just out and about, just laying out in the wild, right? And I don't know what they mean. I just take pictures and share it to my personal Instagram account. We all do that, right? Just random numbers. I saw it. I assumed it was political. Didn't know what it was, but I posted it. Does anyone buy this? I didn't realize some folks associate those numbers with violence. The head of the FBI doesn't understand what an online terroristic threat is. The former head of the FBI, I guess I should say. How fucked were we? This is the guy that Obama appointed in 2013. He's the one that led the Russian interference in our elections, the hoax witch hunt against Donald Trump. He's the one who didn't press any charges against Hillary Clinton. I mean, this guy is as crooked as much of a crooked establishment hack as you can get. But he evidently didn't know. He said, it never occurred to me, but I oppose violence of any kind, so I took the post down. Well, the Secret Service disagreed with Mr. Comey, and they set up a meeting between them. Now, he wasn't arrested or anything like that, but Trump called him out as well. Like I said, if this was some idiot, even if it was just some dude that posted this to his Instagram that wasn't a spook, I still wouldn't believe it, because nobody just takes pictures of a random arrangement of seashells that they saw on the beach and shares it without knowing what they were. That's such a weird thing to do. No one buys this. He knew what it meant. He's used to being part of the elite ruler class that never has any consequences for their actions. Well, guess what, sweetheart? Actions are meeting consequences today, and it is fucking glorious to see. Glorious. I love to see it. So, he should go to jail. He knows what that means, and this is a guy with real connections. This is much more of a threat, James Comey, than some random unhinged liberal who's afraid of guns and gets anxiety ordering food at restaurants and talking to people on the phone in a customer service setting. James Comey has real connections and the ability to make this shit happen. Those people don't. Comey's an actual threat to the livelihood of the president of the United States. This really does, by the way, this really doesn't do much for the argument that the FBI wasn't involved in that shooting of Donald Trump back in Butler, Pennsylvania about a year ago. This kind of disproves that. Or, excuse me, this kind of adds credence to that argument there. And maybe you guys had a little something to do with it. Could be wrong. I don't know. All I know is that he visited the FBI office dozens of times. You had a federal agent that visited his house multiple times. I mean, it just goes on and on. Who knows, though, right? So this is what we're dealing with here. These are real deep state spooks. And again, it's like I said, these people have just never had consequences for anything they've done. They're just used to this crap. Oh, I'm going to go ahead and threaten the president of the United States on Instagram and nothing will happen to me. Nothing will happen to me. And supposedly there's some images of conservative influencers tweeting 8646. You know what? If those are real, they should be investigated as well. But they don't have the connections and the ability to pull off a shooting the way James Comey does. As we know, the FBI has put together its fair share of false flags, including assassination attempts. So I don't think we should leave anything off the table. The guy's a real threat. He needs to be monitored 24/7 at this point. I mean, if James Comey doesn't have a 24/7 tail, Kash Patel should be fired tomorrow. That's a dangerous guy. We need to know who he's talking to, who he's associating with, where he's going. Everything about James Comey. We need to wiretap this guy. Everything about his life needs to be cracked wide open. He is as a deep state establishment hack as they come, and he's a legitimate threat to this country at this point. Unhinged. I mean, you hear about these liberals all the time on Reddit and Facebook and all this crap, sharing their unhinged takes, right? Where they fantasize, they post things like, if only that bullet were another quarter-inch off to the right, or stupid shit like that, right? And yeah, it's ridiculous, and yeah, all those people should get a talking to. But they don't, for the most part, even if they wanted to, if they really wanted to do these things, most of them couldn't. They don't have the means to come even remotely close to pulling something like that off, unless, of course, you have a Thomas Crook situation, but who totally wasn't a CIA asset, right? Totally not at all. Comey's a different story. And we've known that the deep states wanted Trump dead for a long time now. This is just the first time one of them's come out and actually said it. And maybe this was like a boomer moment where he didn't even mean to post this. It was meant to be to a private, like a Sinsta, like the kids have or whatever. Maybe that's what this was. And he did it by accident. Who knows? When I hear this saber rattling about Iran, and then I see these guys post these types of things where you see Iran threaten to shoot the president or whatever, so they're going to assassinate Donald Trump. They put a bounty out for his head. As we know, the intelligence agencies have a foothold in all of these countries. Whether they admit it or not, they have assets in all of them. These countries may or may not know it. It wouldn't be out of character for the CIA, the FBI, you name it, to stage an assassination attempt on Donald Trump so they could kill two birds with one stone and frame Iran. They can take Trump out, get him out of the way, and then they'd be able to send us into war with Iran. They'd have an excuse to do it. And they'd have the majority of the America First movement behind them as they did. It wouldn't surprise me if they pulled something like that. Let's go to the next real quick here. So we're hearing more and more about Israel. And Donald Trump is getting tired of their behavior. So reports came out last week. They said Donald Trump was growing tiresome of Benjamin Netanyahu taking advantage of him and trying to manipulate him. And I called this out under Biden. Biden told Benjamin Netanyahu and Israel, if you're going to continue to take our guns and you're going to continue to take our money and support, you're not to go into Rafah until we give you the green light to do it. And Netanyahu went ahead and went in anyways. Now, whether you support Israel or not, whether you supported Biden or not, I certainly didn't, you should be upset by the fact that a foreign government whom we're funding and we're providing, whether you agree with Biden or not, You should be upset by how little of respect that country had for us to just march right in there and do it anyways. After we explicitly told them you do not have the green light to do this if you're going to continue to receive our aid. Now, that should have, the thing was nobody respected Biden because Biden told everybody not one more step forward, and then they went ahead and did it, and he didn't do anything. So they knew that Biden wasn't actually going to cut their aid off. He really probably didn't even have the power to do it, honestly. So they went ahead and did it because they had no respect for him. The same way China didn't, the same way Russia didn't. None of these countries respected Biden. So Trump's getting tired of it. He's like, hey, I'm not this senile old man that you can jerk around anymore. You're actually going to respect me. Pete Hegseth cancels his visit to Israel. Pete Hegseth's very pro-Israel, as we know, to a fault. And then Donald Trump comes out and says something interesting. Donald Trump comes out late last week and says, early this week, and says, you know, I think the U.S. might go ahead and recognize Palestine as a real state. First time in history. Republican conservative president saying that. Now, I don't know if he actually meant that, but he was arguing with Netanyahu, and I think that was the geopolitical equivalent of liking your ex's Instagram post when you're upset at your boyfriend. I think that's what he did. Now, Israel since came out after this, and they said to the United States, or they issued a statement where they said unilateral recognition of a Palestinian state will force unilateral actions in response. What the hell does that mean? Is that a threat? Did you just threaten your parents? The people who fund your lifestyle? The people who put a roof over your head, food in your stomach, clothes on your back? You just threatened, you're a 15-year-old kid who just threatened your parents because they wouldn't let you take the car out tonight. That's the equivalent here. What does a unilateral action mean? Now, look, there's some evidence. Here's what it means to me. There's some evidence that the Mossad may or may not have had something to do with the JFK assassination. There's also some evidence that they may have played more of a role than some of us are comfortable with in the 9/11 terror attacks. That's some soul searching. And I want to make this clear. I'm not one of these from the river to the sea idiots. I think Israel has a right to exist and they have a right to defend themselves. I question how much of their defending of themselves they should be doing on our dime, but that's a conversation for another time. When I hear unilateral actions, and I know the shady shit the Mossad does all over the world, remember, they may have had something to do with Epstein. There's a lot of evidence pointing toward Epstein being a Mossad agent. But when I know about all the shady shit they've done all over the world, all the shady shit they've done to us, like the USS Liberty, where they attacked one of our aircraft carriers so that they could commit a war crime and we wouldn't know what was going on, it makes me wonder, how long is it till we see a false flag on the United States that's meant to frame Hamas? How long till that happens? Because they have all the incentive to do it, and we know they have the means to do it. I've told you before, Hamas will never attack American soil. Hamas never has, nor will they ever attack American soil. Because they know the second they do, we're not even going to mobilize our military. We're just going to let the dog off the leash and let Israel blow them off the face of the planet. So I would not be surprised if unless things straighten out between Trump and Netanyahu, if we don't see a legitimate false flag terror attack meant to frame Hamas or the Palestinian people perpetrated by the Mossad, our greatest allies, so we hear, on American soil, that I would not put that past them, because that would either draw the U.S. into a war with Palestine and inevitably Iran, or it would at the very least keep the gravy train cooking and allow us to take, or even maybe push Donald Trump to letting Netanyahu go nuts on him. here's my thing again. I'm not anti-Israel. I'm not. And I know that people out there, there's a lot of conservatives out there, and there's a lot of them that are getting red pilled to it slowly. I think the Epstein thing is certainly helping, and the JFK files as well. But I'm not anti-Israel. And I know there's conservatives that hear me. Anyone who's critical of Israel is this anti-Semitic, anti-Israeli, terrorist sympathizer, blah, 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 blah. No, I just don't like watching us get fleeced. I don't like watching us get fleeced by someone who drags us into shit. I mean, I had a football coach when I was 14 tell me that friends are like escalators. They can bring you up or bring you down. Profound, I know. Well, he was a football coach and ninth grade history teacher, so I wasn't really expecting all that much from him. But Israel's one of those down escalators. Like, you ever get to a point in your life where you start taking stock of all your relationships? How many of my friends are actually good for me to have in my life? And how many of them are toxic assholes? You ever do that? Well, at some point, we got to start asking ourselves, guys, is this relationship with Israel actually worth it? Because right now, Israel's the friend that gets us involved in a bar fight every time we go out. He goes out, he's macking on somebody's girl, he's talking shit to him, and for whatever reason, he just keeps finding himself in fights. And every time he tells us, hey, the other guy started it, but every time we go out to the bar, he gets into a fight, and he expects us to come back him up. Every single time we go out, he's in a fight. Let me ask you, is that, because Donald Trump's kind of taken relationships taking note of who are our real allies here in the United States under this whole MAGA 2.0 thing with foreign policy. While we're taking stock of who our friends are, we should take a real hard look at the guy who keeps getting us into bar fights. Because is that someone... I mean, let's say you're 32 years old and you got a friend who keeps getting you in fights. You got a mortgage and a job and a wife and kids that you got to take care of and worry about, or, 350 million people. At some point, that friend is going to get you sent to prison. He's going to get you sent to the hospital, or he's going to get you killed because he keeps getting you into these fights. At some point, you got to have either a sit down with that friend and tell him you need to grow up. Or I'll hang out with you, I'll be friendly and cordial with you, but we're not going out drinking anymore. And if you don't do those things, you got to cut them off totally. Cold turkey, done with them. Because what's going to happen here is if Netanyahu continues to go nuts, and he really is going to go occupy all of Palestine like he says he is, Iran's going to press the button. And that's going to draw. We're going to have to get involved when that happens. And then you've got World War III. Let me ask you, do you really want to get nuked over some shithole in the Middle East that has nothing to do with us? If we don't fix our foreign policy and start reevaluating who our true friends are on the international scale, that's what's going to happen. Because the second Iran hits the button, we're getting dragged into it. The second we get dragged into it, Russia and China get dragged into it. And you thought that shit over there in Ukraine. No, we don't want this. We don't want this. Save me the chest-pounding bullshit. We don't want World War III. I don't want American kids getting shipped off to die for a country that wouldn't piss on us if we were on fire. And that's exactly what Israel is. Which is fine. They probably should have an allegiance to us, considering we fund their lifestyle. But generally speaking, countries should mind their own business. But we get overly involved in this. It aggravates me to no extent. These people that, I speak, it was Mark Levin went on Fox News the other day, said, I speak on behalf of tens of millions of Christians and Jews in America. When we say we'll support Israel no matter what. No, you don't, bro. Maybe you did 20 years ago. You don't anymore. Because there's a lot of Christians and Jews and everybody else in this country that doesn't want to get shipped off to war and doesn't want to get nuked for Israel. The facade is over. They realize the scam that's been run on us for so long. Now, that doesn't mean that they're the same people as those idiots that are going out on college campuses terrorizing Jewish people. That doesn't mean that they don't believe Israel as a country has a right to exist. Because let me tell you, if Israel really goes in and takes all of Palestine like Netanyahu's saying he wants to do, Israel won't exist because Iran will hit the button and they'll have the support of Russia and China in the process. So if you guys really love Israel all this much, you should hope that Donald Trump and this administration prevents Benjamin Netanyahu from getting it destroyed. That is exactly what he's going to do. Benjamin Netanyahu, if he continues these aggressive actions in the Middle East and continues to advance and try to take all of Gaza and all of Palestine and continues to wag his finger at the United States, he is going to get more Jews killed than Adolf Hitler. I would go as far to say he may have lost his mind at this point. Who knows? What do I know? What do I know? Speaking of Hitler, let's talk his last one here. Kanye's new song. Kanye released a new song called Heil Hitler. That's the name of the song. You've probably heard it by now. If you haven't, I'm not going to play it because I'll get a copyright strike and all the platforms are yanking it other than Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. It's on there. I'm sure it's on Rumble too. But the chorus to the song is all my niggas, Nazi nigga, hail Hitler. Fun times, right? Fun times. What the fuck, dude? Here's my thing. If they just would have let Kanye West have his little meltdown a couple years ago where he was going crazy about the Jews on social media, this probably would have been over. But they continued to push him and they continued to take shots at him. And this is what happened. I mean, let's think about this because this is such a Streisand effect here. It really opened up Pandora's box, what the establishment did to Kanye. Think about what happened a couple years ago when Kanye started this Jew thing. Kanye went on one of his many social media tirade breakdowns and said that the Jews run Hollywood, all of the major businesses, and the banks, right? What happened to Kanye? Well, he got blackballed in Hollywood, lost all his major sponsors, and got his bank accounts closed. I mean, I don't agree with that conspiracy, but kind of proving him right when you do that. So since you tripled down on him, he decided okay, cool, I'm going to make this part of my brand. And that's really what it did, was because here's what happened. It's the same thing to a much more extreme degree, but it's the same thing as what happened with Donald Trump in last year's election. Donald Trump, when he got put in jail and absolutely railroaded by the entire establishment for over a year and a half, people took note of that. And they said, wait a second, the same people that have been screwing me over are also screwing this guy over. So maybe he is on my side. Same thing happened with Kanye. Hey, the same people that have created this caste system where you have the elites and then the peons down here are going after Kanye. Maybe he's got a point? I don't know. Maybe. And what you did, rather than just letting this be the flash in the pan that it inevitably would have been, you decided to go after him. And Kanye, being Kanye, decided he was going to fight back. And now, because you didn't listen to me when this was going on, and just leave him alone and not give him the attention, Piers Morgan, now you're going to get entire stadiums of people, by the way, a lot of white people, singing the words nigga, hail Hitler over and over and over again throughout the summer. I'm not going to lie, it's a catchy song. It is. It's way catchier than it should be. It's so catchy. You're like your woke cousin's going to be humming it in the shower and go hang herself the second she gets out and realizes what she's done. This is cancel culture backfiring in an extreme manner. I don't agree with what Kanye's saying about Jewish people. I find a lot of it to be repulsive. But he has a right to say it. And your overreaction to what he said is what caused it to blow up the way it did. When you allow people to speak and say stupid things and exchange those stupid ideas in the open marketplace of ideas, you also allow other people who have better ideas, far more often than not, way more well thought out and backed up by actual logic and reason and facts, to come out and combat those bad ideas. And what happens? Well, those people usually go away, or they at least lose a ton of credibility. It's an embarrassment. I mean, all you got to do is shine light on bad ideas. People were starting to take note of Kanye till he went on Alex Jones and exposed himself for being a lunatic. All Alex had to do was just let him talk. Now you've tried to push him underground again, and this song has millions and millions and millions and millions of hits. You did this to yourselves, guys, with this cancel culture bullshit. And you know what? Kanye brought up afterwards, he had a point. There's music on Spotify, there's music on Apple, there are all these apps that call black people the N-word with the hard R. There's music on there, there's rap songs all over the place that talk about sex trafficking and murder and dealing drugs, beating women. There's songs on there that talk about Hail Satan. You guys don't have near as much of an issue with songs that say Hail Satan as you do the songs that say Hail Hitler. Why is that? Without Satan, there is no Hitler. Satan's worse. They're both bad guys, but Satan's worse. So why is you so-called Christians, why is Hail Satan okay, but Hail Hitler's not? Why the selective outrage? You've now allowed Kanye West to humanize Hitler. Because what happens when you push this information underground and you refuse to interact with it and you refuse to let anybody even hear it, they start digging into it. And when they go to dig into this stuff, they end up on websites that are maybe not so reputable, they being the people that are interested in why he's being pushed underground. And they get people in their ear that are either intentionally manipulating facts or misled themselves. And then people who never would have considered these ideals before, begin to succumb to them. That's how cancel culture works. When you try to push things underground, that's where they grow. They're like bacteria. When you shine light on them, they go away. And that's been our show. We'll see you guys tomorrow, Saturday, 9 a.m. Central Standard Time, right back here on YouTube and Rumble for the big show. Cheat on your taxes, not your spouse, and stay based.